I'm Euge Valovirta, and this one is about Otto Audio's V1111 AMC. Alright, that was the song I wrote specifically for this video, inspired by the plugin, and I used it on guitars and bass. The drums are programmed. I did them by using Toontrack's Superior Drummer 3. First, let's listen to the bass. Really cool clanky bass. Then the guitars. Like that. So I used my own presets, which, by the way, you can download them from the link in the description below. And if you buy the plugin by using my code Euge Tone, Euge Tone, Euge Tone, written there, Euge Tone, Euge Tone, you will get a 50% discount of the plugin, and I'll get a small commission. That's really cool to all parties. Okay, so yeah, I made a few presets by myself, and I dialed these kind of like based on my own tube amps. So the 800 is kind of like 800, and I used a Otto Audio's own tube screamer in front. The amp sim has a tube screamer also. Let's get that into shortly, and then. The left guitar was Otto Song, which is 5150 CISO, and tube screamer in front, Otto's own. The lead guitars I used a tone that I named Boogie because it was quite similar to my, Boogie Mark V, kind of combination between the 2C Plus and Mark IV modes, and no overdrive in front. I use this built-in overdrive here because I don't normally use an overdrive with the Boogie, with the Mark V, because it doesn't really need it. It's really tight on its own. And the melody guitars here, the same setup. So that's the mix. Really cool plugin. I must say, it sounds pretty darn good. Okay, let me grab my guitar and let's go through all the parameters and knobs and what they do and so on. Okay, so here's the Otto open and my preset called EV800, Use Overdrive. Alright, let me go through all the possibilities, what you can do with this. Well, there's your basic EQ, gain, bass, middle, treble, master, presence, and depth. This has a lot of low end, this amp or amp sim, so you might wanna be careful with that. And then what we have here is impedance curve, which works with this section. There's 22 different cabinets, and then let's say I have this cabinet 11, which was one of my favorite. Then I can change the kind of the vibe, the impedance curve of the cabinet. Whether there's more lows, more highs, more mids, so it changes the character of the cabinet. So these two, the impedance curve and the cabinet section, they work together. And then when you click the amp, it flips to another side. There's a mod knob, so it does quite little, but it does little. It changed the behavior of the amp a little bit. And then this section, this is a kind of like a built-in modded tube screamer. Let me engage that. It's pretty cool, but I actually preferred more of the Ottos. This is still in beta phase. This is free. This like a stock kind of tube screamer. Well, not stock, because there's overdrive, tone. The level is here, and then this is weight. It kind of adds weight. So I use that. But what's really cool, this amp sim works really well with real pedals. I have a pedal board here. Let me engage the real 808. Then Bass SD 1. So this works really well with real pedals too. Then we have a gate. If you have lots of gain, kind of dial like the way I use gates, just to get rid of the hiss, not really acting as a gate. Then you can choose between three types of power tubes. EL34s, well, because this is 800 preset, EL34s, 606s or KD88s. Okay. Then these four, these are really cool knobs. So this bias knob determines whether, if it's here, the amp is cold biased, like a 5150. If it's here, it's very hot biased. I had it around, middle, because that's how kind of my 800 is biased. It's like, in the middle, not cold and not really hot. And then the sag, with this you can emulate how a real amp behaves when you crank the master, when the tube starts to really, so when it's here, it's kind of really modern, not clean, distorted sound, but in a way it doesn't do that. Then when it's here, it's kind of like a plexi style. around there, let's see where I had it. Yeah, around there, it felt really close to my, original real 800. And the feedback circuit, it's kind of, the negative feedback thing between a cabinet and a amp's power amp section. And so the more you dial these, if you have these on 0, then the presence and depth knobs, they really don't do anything, because as you probably know, presence and depth knobs, they operate in the amp's power section, at least on most of the amps. So the more you dial this in, the more negative feedback there is between the power amp and the cabinet, and the more these have effect. So where I had it, let me see. Yeah, okay, there. So then it felt kinda really close to what I get when I play with a real amp and with a reactive load, or with a real amp and with a cabinet. And this snarl, this adds snarl, kind of filth. What I really like about this plugin, that this is filthy in a good way. Like real amps, they're filthy, they're noisy, that's the many amp seams plugins. They're too perfect, they're too good. Like they're not filthy, and that's the beauty of a real amp. They're filthy. This is kind of like your basic amp sim. You can get this really filthy. So I think I had it around, noon. Okay. Then with this amplitude, you can compensate the volume, because the more sag you add, it becomes quieter. So with this, you can retain back the volume. Now it's really like so, but again, I found it with this 800, it to be, there's my boogie preset, a little bit, because there's a little bit sag going on, because I like to keep the master on 800s on all two amps, especially on Marshalls, fairly high. So that's that. And then the cabinet section is also here, where you can choose different cabinets, and then you can determine the resonance, the low end thump, how much there is. So this one has like a huge low end. Euge. That's the behind, the amp. And then you can bypass the impulse responses if you want to use some others. All of these are really great. They're really modern, in your face stuff. But let's say you want to use something else. You can bypass this and then use, for example, STL Tones Libra, where I actually have my own signature IR Valovirta. Let's get into that soon, because the way I dialed my presets, I have here a bank where I have a few presets: 800, boogie, clanky bass, person 2, clean, plexi, and sideshow 5150. So I dialed these with my real amps. So I have a channel here where I have the Libra and the Valovirta's IR. That's the IR I'm most comfortable with, I mostly use. And then I bypassed the IRs here and used the Libra to dial in the tones, that they are as close as possible. Obviously, because this isn't trying to emulate any specific amp. It's an own amp. It's an Otto, the 1111. But this is so versatile that I could get really close tones, or at least in a kind of family, 800 style tones from this amp. And as you probably know, impulse response has a quite big impact on your overall tone. So that's why I bypassed this and used the Libra. So I had the same impulse response with my real amps and with this Otto. So let me demonstrate you quickly. We have the 800. Let's bypass the IR here. And let's engage the LiBra. And let's bypass the Otto Tune Screamer also. So now we have the amp going into STL Tones LiBra, where I have Valovirta's IR. Okay? Then real amps, they go to the soundtrack reactive load, and then from the direct out, so I'm not using the IRs I have loaded here, into LiBra and the same impulse response. Okay, so now no overdrives, nothing. Now it's my 800 preset without any overdrives. It says here use overdrive. So I've dialed these like I use real amps, mostly with overdrive. Okay, then let's bring up the real amp. It's the bad boy. It's not the same because this isn't trying to emulate 800, but to me the feeling, the kind of the tone, it's in that 800 ballpark. Okay, and then when we add Bass SD1, now the real amp. Now the Otto. It's, to me, it feels like so close, and the tone is that 800 style, lots of mids, upper mid bark, and yeah, it's just great. EL34s, well, these are 6550s, but yeah. So this way I dialed all my presets here. So the boogie, it's kind of like how I set my boogie. They all have different tones because I record lots of stuff here, you know, and so I have set all the amps to, you know, give me different kind of tones. So if I go these through, let's close the LiBra and now engage the IRs here. So these IRs, they're a little bit more, even more nastier, which is kind of cool also. I'm gonna show you the tones I did, and it says here use overdrive. So I'm gonna use real overdrives because this works really well. You can obviously use plugins. This one, the Otto amps, it's great. Great emulation of plugin. This one here, to me, it added a bit too much gain and too much low, and even the low kind of on the low position. Now it's at a really low. So which also, it's just a matter of personal preferences. To me, this is a little bit high. This is kind of like a mudded GS9, really hot mudded. I'm more of an old school guy, so this was a bit too much for me, but it's really cool. But I'm gonna use now real pedals. So first, real SD1. Without. It's kind of like new 800. Okay, and then 5150 or CYHRA with SD. First without. Then SD. This one I actually dialed by using my TS808. Because that's what I usually use with 5150. Okay, cool. Then let's bypass the overdrives. What I have here is boogie. With a real boogie, I don't use really an overdrive. This overdrive worked really well here, so it added just like this nice punch. Cool. It's dialed pretty much like I have my boogie. Then I have just a clean sound and it's basic. There's nothing, well, it's not actually clean, but I like this little bit. Then if we add real chorus. With this tone, it's quite similar than my Marshall JSM 2000 TSL's clean channel, or the Boogie's, the first channel, which is clean channel. Kind of this clean niche. And then if you hit really hard, it breaks up a little bit. Then the plexi, this doesn't really do kind of plexi because this is modern amp, but I was able to get fairly close. Check it out. This kind of good old rock and roll tone. Cool. And yeah, this row here. So here you can, there's lots of presets, like amp match is different. So with this one, you kind of decide what kind of amp, I mean it's one amp, but the character. So if you, let's say, choose my 800, okay. Then with this one you can change even more the behavior of that 800. My favorite was these long play tubes, pretty much on everything. So with this one you can change the character of the preset you have chosen. These long play tubes, this was the closest to my real amps. And then the input level, obviously, you can determine that. And then the output level. And this one this is really cool. Because now it's mono, like you use real amp. But you can do really cool stuff with this, because now this channel, this is a stereo channel, mono in stereo out channel. So what I can do is I can make this really wide. Check it out. So you get this stereo guitar effect. And then here's also a stereo option. Let's say if you want to use this on a stereo guitar bus, you have recorded different guitars, DIs, and then you put this on the bus and put it on stereo, then all the DI tracks will go through this. So it's really cool. But I'm using it now on mono, like standard amps. And this is the whatever this was, but kind of the processing thing, The 4 is kind of the basic. Then you can now it takes more of your from your CPU. So the 4 is work just fine. If you want to go hi-fi, use the 8. And then this punch, this adds punch. It just makes the amp punchier. And then you can bypass the power amp, so then it uses only the preamp section. Let's say if you have a power amp simulation you can use, or you can send this, you know, to your amp's power amp. You know, use this like, you know, on the laptop on a show. So this will be your preamp. Then you send it out from your, you know, obviously you need to have an audio interface. You send the signal out to a power amp and to cabinet, so you can use this, you know, as your live amp also. Conclusion. This is really good plugin. Why I like it? This isn't like clean and too polished and perfect like some amp sims are. That's why I don't usually like them. There's a few others I like a lot. Those of you who follow my channel know what they are. This one, this is filthy. It's filthy in a good way, in a way like real amps. It's great. The impulse responses are great, but if you prefer something else, you can bypass them and use something else. The overdrive is great. It was a little bit too much for me, but the Otto juice screamer they make is great. But what's also really cool that this takes real pedals really well. On the mix, I didn't use them because I just wanted to show you like just the DI sound. If you don't have any pedals, you can get great results. The way I use this, I like to use this with real pedals. So I just switch because, you know, it takes them like a real amp. Great plugin. And remember, use the Euge tone in Finnish, Euge tone code. You get a 50% discount of this fantastic amp simulator. Hey, hopefully you found this interesting and informative. Until next time, all the best. See ya.